Welcome to another episode of the Philosophy of Chillin. I'm your host, Dylan to Connect. Um, Thank you for joining me again for another episode. Hopefully, this topic of conversation will be helpful for whoever is listening and tuning in. So, without further ado, let me first get my tea ready. Because today's episode will definitely need it. So, for anybody who's listening or watching, if you want to pause this video, make you some tea, or set your atmosphere to just be chilling, go ahead and get ready to do so. Proceed to do so. No worries. We about to get started soon. Yeah, that's good. All right. So today's episode, as y'all know, I don't like to release the topics of conversation or the theme of the conversation until the actual recording. So, without further ado, today's episode will be about mental health. More specifically, we'll be trying to answer the question of how can one use the philosophy of chilling to understand, apply, and develop their mental health. We also had another question that was asked by an audience member, someone that requested that I answer this question directly pertaining to this topic of conversation. So I wanted to put a disclaimer out for everybody listening and tuning in. If you have a question for me that you would like for me to answer, or a topic that you would like for me to discuss and open the floor, whether it be with just my own philosophy or with someone else joining me, drop it in the comments. Let me know. I'll definitely aim to do so, because if it interests you, then it may interest somebody else, or it may help somebody else, for us to have that type of discussion. So yeah, just let me know, drop it in the comments, and stay tuned. So let's go over the question again before we begin. How can one use the philosophy of chilling to understand, apply, and develop their mental health? So this is definitely a loaded question. So let's kind of break it down. Let's start at the understanding point first. So how can one use the philosophy of chilling to understand their mental health? Honestly, you always have to start with yourself. You always have to start with yourself. And if you're not willing to start with yourself first, then you can't help somebody else in the ways that you're wanting to, or in the ways that you think in your mind or in your intention that you will or are. With that being said, if you're not willing to sit down with yourself and deal with the things that are being processed in your head and aiming to decipher what is actually meant for you to pursue, then it'll get real confusing real quick. So, in understanding yourself, what are the elements that make you who you are? Do you understand how or what elements of your soul create your personality, or that contribute to who you are authentically? this is an important question because this is really this is the root of everything. Like, if I understand that there are religious practices, or not even religious beliefs, but just beliefs in general, that defer you away from certain aspects of astrology or anything of that sort. But even outside of just astrology and, you know, crystals and meditation and everything else, there are other aspects about who you are as a person that can still identify themselves to you in and outside of those beliefs. I say all of this to say, like, some of the things that have helped me understand the elements of who I am. Before I got introduced to the world of astrology and trying to understand my birth chart, and the elements of like the zodiac that kind of contribute to the person and the attributes of my personality that I hold and possess, the first thing I got introduced to was personality tests. I've taken plenty of personality tests that highlight different elements of who I am, whether it be, I think it was like the Ingram test. There was another one where I was like an 8 on the scale. I forgot the name of it, but that was pretty telling as well. And I'll try to look up these personality tests and drop them in the comments below, so that anyone interested could, participate in them as well. The Gallups, GALLUP, I think, apostrophe S. That was another test that I took. And in taking these different personality tests, I was able to uncover different aspects of myself, and most importantly, what that personality trait looked like in other people's eyes and other people's perspectives, and gave me a blunt comparison of, the percentage of uniqueness that that personality had in relation to other people that have taken the test. So that was very telling for me, because in doing so, it kind of revealed, hey, I know that you might have a personality that is naturally introverted, but you have a lot of leadership qualities and abilities and skills that is something that can be utilized effectively within, different projects or different opportunities that you might be interested in. Another thing that helped me was learning, still I consider myself to be a novice. Well, not a novice, but like a beginner, intermediate level. But even so, I still know enough to where I can understand and articulate, maybe not fully, but to the degree of saying, hey, I know that I might come off as a Taurus because I found out that's my rising. But really, where I handle my emotions is, I think my moon is Aries. But I know my Taurus is a rising. My rising is in Taurus. My moon is in Aries. And then I'm a Cancer. And then, yeah, that's pretty much, I think, my big 3. And essentially, what I've been able to learn about that is how I react to other individuals, and also how I come across in the world. Like, one thing that I had to understand was that rising Taurus is how people perceive me. So that's kind of how I have always, that's how I understood that comment of, dang, you so chill, you so chill. And I've always like listened to people tell me that. I'm like, okay, for sure. Like, that's cool. Like, okay. I don't, I still am very passionate. Like, as these episodes and stuff go on, you'll see what brings out my passion and what brings out my different emotions. But it's not to say that I don't have those emotions. It's just to say that unless somebody hits that trigger for you, you come on very chill, and that's cool. And I had to understand that and be like, okay, for sure. So those elements as well, and even understanding that my moon was in Aries, that describes where that passion comes from. Like, if it's a topic on, discrimination or, history in general, the decisions that some, people have made, I've always wondered, why I don't want to sit in this frustration, I don't want to sit in this anger. But the reason why I had it so prominently and I felt it so dominantly was the fact that it's in that big three. Like, if I'm upset or if I'm feeling passionate about something, regardless of what emotion is attached to it, it go at it. Like, that bull in that ram around that water is essentially that balance that, I can level up to whatever someone is trying to, whatever energy is being emitted to me. But at the same time, that water is still surrounding me in the sense of, okay, yeah, you gonna go up, but eventually this water gonna, splash into the fire to help, bring it back down. So that was something that was very telling for me, and it's still revealing itself to me and the ways in which they contribute to my personality and how I respond and how I am perceived in the world as well. But the thing is, if I wasn't willing to be open, not just in my active listening to what other people have deposited in me about the knowledge and wisdom that comes within those specific realms of information, then I would have brushed it off and just said, okay, I don't know nothing about this. Ain't nobody told me about this. If I didn't do my own researching as well and just sit back to digest the information for myself, I would have never been able to, pick out the gems of what I can utilize to actually help me understand myself and how to mitigate my emotions and everything else. Which leads me to the last and final thing that I utilize to help, understand myself so that I could, start growing in the aspects and holding myself accountable in the aspects and areas that I needed to grow in. And that is self-talk. Like, I understand there's a lot of knowledge around us, whether it be in books, online, word of mouth from people and their experiences, trying to not necessarily project, but convey what they have experienced in their life on top of what they're seeing in our life as well. Whether it's unwarranted or not, but still, like, one thing that trumped all other information that I've been given or that has been passed down to me is the fact that I had the willingness to sit down and actually listen to myself. Excuse me. And I say that to say, with that self-talk, it's not to just be like sitting down like, oh yeah, you're right, they tipped me off and da-da-da-da, or you know what, it wasn't da-da-da. Self-talk is not only to reaffirm what you're already feeling and going through. It's to sit back and say, okay, what am I saying when nobody else can hear me? What's going on in my mind about this situation or about this circumstance or just about the state in which I'm feeling? And then on top of that, being able to not just listen, but to allow it to digest, if that makes sense. Like, I understand it might be uncomfortable, and when I get upset or when I get stuck in my head about something, even if it's just going down a rabbit hole of the things that I need to do. I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, but then again, I have to what I had to do was sit down and let all of that digest in me before I moved. I had to sit down and be like, okay, my mind is literally going a mile a minute, and I need to figure out where that mile is headed to. And when I did that, I was able to see my thought process and the ways in which I could have been or was and am still trying to pull myself away from that was holding me back or kind of like an obstacle. Because what I found was, yeah, okay, I meet this random person in the street and they tell me something about astrology. Okay, cool, that's running in my mind. You know, I don't really know too much about it, but there were certain things that sounded like it related to me. And then when I was able to sit down for myself and look at, you know, the information that they tried to relay, read it for myself or listen to it for myself in another way, then I'm able to sit down with this new information and be like, okay, well, even though this wasn't rooted in something my family members taught me or something in the practices that my family has built into the foundation of, you know, our unit, one thing that I have been able to do is understand what actually related to me authentically. And what I mean by that is I listen to something I've never heard before. Of course, there are reservations on, you know, different contextual aspects of what they're relaying, but the principle of what they're trying to say is to help me. Okay, but now I know that they're trying to help me. Now I've heard what they've had to say. Now I'm listening to myself and how I'm digesting that information. Some of my body does not, or some aspect of my mind and who I am and what's surrounding me is not really in correlation to what they're saying. But there's something key here that actually helped me in the moment that they said it. So let me attach myself to the aspect that actually made me feel as if it would help me. And then let me research that a little bit further for myself. Now, once I research it, there might be some things that hit me a little personally. And I'm sitting here like, hold on, stop coming for me. Because, you know, this might be a little aspect, but this ain't me fully. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm depicting in my mind is literally dissecting, okay, this is something and that I can hold myself accountable to, but this is also something that isn't necessarily reflected in me, but I know that I can take this information and apply it to my growth. And that self-talk in its most transparent aspect is really what has helped me deviate between, is this information real? Like, can it really help me do the things that I would like to do in my life? Or help me figure out what that next step is, or how to calm myself through the difficult times that I'm experiencing because of my journey or where I'm at in my journey right now. That self-talk helped me so much because honestly, at the end of the day, there are moments in time and spaces where ain't nobody gonna be able to help you but you, because you understand what's actually going on in your mind. And one thing I always try to say or aim to convey in my words is the fact that there's such an importance on mental health that sometimes our reality distorts how important it is, if that makes sense. Like, for example, the cliche phrase, it just comes to me naturally. This is just how I am. Well, even if it comes to you naturally, that doesn't necessarily mean that is who you are meant to be. And what I mean by that is you may respond to something instinctually and chalk it up to, this is just me. Yeah, but this is you at an immature state. So all of us can grow because we're human, we're living, we're breathing. So there is no aspect in our lives that really correlate to stagnancy except for our perception of what we believe we deserve to receive within our lives, if that makes sense. Like, if you're around someone that you know for a fact in your gut, this ain't right. Like, this ain't right. But because of how you perceive your reality to be and how you perceive what you deserve in your life, you feel like, okay, I need to stay around this person because they feed into what I feel like I should have in my life. But really, every time you're around them, you have this gut feeling like this ain't right. You get what I'm saying? Like, having that self-talk is what helps you be able to digest that and then have an authentic conversation with yourself on what you should actually be doing. And that aspect of your mental health cannot be ignored, because you can try to ignore it and it'll still be present. You'll just have a backseat to the effects of your life. And you might want to chalk it up to, oh, this is just, but really is the fact that you keep choosing to be in that atmosphere or in that relationship and feeding into it as well and not setting any boundaries. And you can look or try to place the responsibility of that predicament on someone else or on what has generated from the relationship. But at the end of the day, there can always be a move in a different direction. You get what I'm saying? So in order to understand how to develop your mental health or how to understand your mental health in general, you really do have to start with yourself and be honest, because your mental health literally drives everything. So if you're not honest with what's unseen, what you actualize in your reality will reflect the dishonesty that you're showing to you, really. If we've taken the steps to understand our mental health and the different elements and aspects that contribute to it, now we have to understand how to apply. Like, how do you apply your mental health, or how do you utilize your mental health to move forward within your journey? And really, like, how do you just understand yourself and then through that understanding be like, okay, within these situations, this is how I am prone to react because of these aspects of personality, of so forth and so on. And in order to do that, you have to have experiences. And that application comes through the experiences that you have. because there are two aspects or two questions that kind of unfold for me when I think about that. Is through those experiences, what communities have you found yourself gravitated to? And I say that because, just like the cliche says, birds of a feather flock together. And what that means to me is, okay, let's say you understand your mental health, but let's say you are just willing to do what you need to do in order to get in the rooms or places that you feel like you deserve to be in. Not necessarily are supposed to be in, because only you know if God really told you to be there, or if you're forcing it because of what you actually want physically within your life. And that's where this question comes from, because what have you said, okay, whatever I got to do to get this done, I'm gonna get it done. Or what have you experienced to where I don't know how this happened, it felt natural, it felt smooth, but these people, being around them speaks to me, whether it be through inspiration, whether it be through healthy competition and support. I feel at home in some sort of way here. Now take those two different levels and figure out what has occurred in your life and what have you leaned more to one side than the other. And in answering that question, now you can understand, okay, so if I'm in this community and I'm gravitated to it, what are the aspects of this community that are alive in me right now? Are these the things that I am striving to be in terms of the person that I want to be, that I'm trying to grow and develop into becoming even more confidently? Or are these aspects of myself that I try to ignore, that I try to, look for other people's, support and approval on, to ensure that I'm not alone by myself in acting or feeling this way? Like, and that can be taken in a good and bad way, but just in terms of this example, are these people depicting areas that I want to grow from? And is being around this community helping me grow from that place, or is it keeping me here and making me feel more comfortable to stay in this space? And that's important to your mental health, because the environment that you generate, get energy from, that is what further affirms your mind on where you want to be. And all that does is put you deeper either into circumstances or predicaments that don't really serve you and where you're trying to go, or that only served you for a season and now you're, stuck in that space, or it pushes your mental health to strip itself of what it would typically do and challenges those aspects to grow. And it's uncomfortable, but one thing I've been able to experience is the fact that when you push your mental health to grow, it becomes more apparent on what you are forcing, which responses you're forcing or refusing to apply in a growth moment, versus being able to acknowledge, hey, this is something that you've done in the past. this is what you can do in the present if you're able to get over the frustrations and all of the other emotions you would feel naturally here or innately here, so you don't overshadow or overwash the uncomfortableness of stepping up to do this action that you have learned can best help the situation, either in dealing with the person that you're in the predicament with, or just, yourself again, on responding in a better way than what you have in the past. I hope this makes sense as I'm going along. So yes, that's how you really apply that mental health, because those communities help bring out the situations and circumstances that you can utilize to really test, am I growing in the aspect or in the ways in which I am pushing myself to do? Which leads me to the next question of your experiences, which pulls out how you apply your mental health, and that is, how have you responded? Plain and simple as that. Like, how do you respond? Because if you're talking about applying any forms of development, any forms of knowledge of yourself and of your mental health, well, that application lies in your response every single time. Like, are you still responding in the same ways that you were when you were 17, 16, 15, and you 50? Are you still responding in the same ways that you were when you were in college and you 45? You feel me? Like, it always lies in the actions. So if your actions are cycles that you're picking up on, it's not to say that, oh, this is just how it is, or this is just how I am. It's more so to just showcase the fact that, hey, you're going to keep being shown these situations in different people, in different groups, in different atmospheres, in different environments. And if you continue to respond in the same way, your gut feels it and tells you, you either gonna stay here, or if you're really challenging yourself, after 5 times, you can tell when you're just responding in the same ways, or you can not dictate, but you can indicate a pattern. So in this sense, okay, how am I responding? Is it, if it's in the same ways and attributes that I have depicted before, am I willing to, and this is the key on being able to understand your mental health in general, now you're able to see, okay, am I willing to apply the things that I've learned in the groups that I've picked up on healthy habits from? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, even if you don't have a healthy group around you, if you understand yourself and how you process information, now you can look at your mental health and say, I'm feeling this because it is targeting my emotions pertaining to my insecurities, so forth and so on. Now, because I understand what aspects of my insecurities or emotions that this situation is hitting, because I understand this, and now I'm experiencing this situation, am I going to choose, with all of the frustration I'm feeling, with all of whatever emotion I'm feeling, am I going to choose to respond in the same ways I've done before? Or am I going to take the uncomfortable route in trying to apply a new skill that either I've learned from somebody else that spoke to me, or that I feel is probably best for me in this moment? And in answering those questions, that in itself is like a level of accomplishment in understanding your mental health, because now when you're in an immature state of your mental health, you're just doing things because you impulsively want to. Like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm gonna do. This is how I wanna do it, this is how I am doing it right now. But when you hit that accomplishment, whether you feel like it's significant or not, to me it is. Any level of accomplishment in your mental health is an accomplishment beyond measures to me. But when you're reaching that level to where you're looking at a situation and you can see in yourself what decisions you have to make to either make this situation better for you, to de-escalate it so that it doesn't reach the most extreme aspect of what it could be. And when you see those options in front of you, that's a clear indicator of like, hey, I've grown to understand enough about myself to know that if I respond here, I'm doing the same things I've done before that has caused me anguish internally. And I'm also able to see a response that I can utilize to help me grow from where I was, which I haven't felt this before, I haven't done this before, but to have the ability to now see the changes I can make in real time before a situation escalates is an accomplishment. So now it's up to you as a person, okay, do I actually want to walk the walk of development, growth, and everything else that I've been talking about? And if you are, when you are able to answer that question, it will show itself to you each and every time. And for me, that's been that accomplishment of being able to, in a moment of high intensity, being able to see those options in front of me has been a life changer for me, literally. Like, I have been able to physically see the visual depiction of how I would respond naturally, just off the high intensity. And I've also seen the ways in which I can de-escalate this situation. And I've actively chosen to walk the de-escalation path. And I'm be honest, there are some effects that can still affect your mental health, because walking the de-escalation path, or the path that makes you the most uncomfortable, it still has its pros and cons, because the effects of you taking that de-escalation route can not necessarily get you to the reality that you thought you deserved, you wanted. To the reality you thought you wanted and deserved. It can take you away from some communities. It can sever your relationships with some people. And sometimes those relationships are severed because of a lack of context, because after that high intensity moment, there wasn't a moment of recoupment from that situation, or a moment of clarity to where it can be unpacked of, this is what was happening when this occurred. This is how it affected my mental health. This is how I digested it. This is why I responded in the way that I did. And without that conversation, sometimes it's not guaranteed, and that's okay. But that goes back to you understanding your mental health, because if you understood in that high intensity moment, this is what is best for me, and you walked it, everything else that happens after that, it's like, it may still affect you in negative and or positive ways, but just from my experience, what it has been able to do is the fact that now, because I've taken the de-escalation route, I can look at the effects of the situation the cause of the situation, who was involved in the situation, and again, the effects of it, and I can digest it more easily than what I would have done if I would have responded in the same ways, or in the same ways that I felt to respond naturally. Because a lot of the effects that happen when you take that de-escalation route, like I said before, sometimes the other person doesn't have the right context. There's nothing you can do about that. That's out of your control. Like, if they're still upset with you and y'all haven't had the time or opportunity to have a face-to-face conversation and actually be transparent and authentic with each other, then it's like, okay, well, I can't stay mad at that person, because at the end of the day, they might have been triggered in that situation. But because we haven't been able to have the context to understand each other, or have another sit down to where everyone has been leveled out and have that conversation, it is, God take the wheel. It is what it is, because at that point it's out of your control. But what can help you digest everything you're feeling about the effects is the fact that, for one, the situation didn't escalate to something of no return. And as long as you were able to stand back up after that moment, you don't know how God is going to work in the remainder of your life. Because we have to remember, we're humans, and then at the same time, this world is big. But when you're in alignment with where God is placing you, you're always going to come back around to the people that you probably would have met earlier in your life. And when that time comes for everyone to circle back or to get reintroduced to another individual, at least in my experience, I haven't grown since the last time you talked to me, so I'm not the same person. So I'm going to treat you and reintroduce myself with that notion in mind. And I'm going to allow myself and open myself up to be reintroduced to the person that you have grown to be. And sometimes even that can get you in trouble, because, a lot of people are very particular about, hey, say, remember my name, say hey to me. And, sometimes when you're developing and when you're growing, sometimes the details can be missed. But when you're ingrained on making the experience something of positive and true intention, even if you forget the details, there's always a space and time where grace can be applied, and you can still have that opportunity and chance to learn an individual in the ways that they have grown and everything else. So, how do you develop your mental health? Man, the ways in which you develop or gauge your development with your mental health, it honestly can derive from a lot of different things. But the overarching umbrella would definitely, in my opinion, have to be the observations that you make within your life. At the end of the day, we all got eyes. We see. There are times where everyone is living their individual lives amongst people, and we'll just observe the interactions while we're all, staying in our own lane, minding our business. But these observations and subtle interactions are things that we can pull from to understand, okay, where is our mental health right now? What state am I in? What condition am I in? How do I need to move forward from what I'm acknowledging? And the first thing I would point out for those observations, or something that is key to observe to understand your gauge of development, is the fact, is your lineage / family history. that's the root of who you are as a person in general. Like, you know, biology, you come from a sperm chromosome, XY chromosome, and an XX chromosome. These two things have to be together in order to make life in general. So with that being said, if you understand where your X and Y chromosomes, where they come from, and what has been integrated within that genetic makeup of your family history, then you can understand, even from an outsider's perspective looking in, okay, if my uncle dealt with so forth and so on, in my life, it might explain why I'm not really gravitated to these specific elements or substances or things of that sort. If my mom or my father has experienced XYZ, ABC within their life, okay, now I can understand that this might be something I need to look out for, and it might show up differently within my life, but if the principle still relates to what they went through, I can utilize the information of what they did or the example of what they did to deal with it as a gauge of what's not and what is something that I should lean towards to. And this just, again, helps you understand how you're perceiving information in general. What do you rely on to get you through a tough day? Once you're able to understand that, like, what does my brain immediately go to? Like, let's say addiction in a sense. Okay, well, for one, let's say I understand that there is a history of addiction in my family. For myself, I know that it might not be with the same substances that they are dealing with, but I can detect addictive tendencies with something else in my life. Now, with that being said, okay, am I willing to commit to put myself in the predicament of addressing the emotions that I'm feeling when I feel like I need to go to this substance or to this thing or object to help me deal with what I'm feeling? Now, if that's the case, okay, well, if I feel like I always have to go to this substance or this thing or this object, maybe it's not the object, because the object ain't got legs. It ain't walking to me. It might be a person that's walking up to me offering, doing da-da-da-da, but the substance itself is staying stagnant. It's really the feeling and emotion of, oh, I gotta have this to feel happier. No. No, like, if you're trying to address your mental health at that point and that growth development stage should be like, hey, you're feeling this. This is what you're feeling. It's at such a high intensity level that it's everywhere in your body, and it's making you think and feel as if you're enclosed in a space and you're trying to get out. But before you try to make a move to force us to get out of this state of mind, why won't you challenge yourself to sit in it and to understand why you are feeling this way? Because once you sit in it and you understand why, like, so-and-so did this, so I perceived it as this, and da-da-da-da. Okay, cool, let's talk about it. Whether it be internally, on paper by yourself, or talking to a therapist. I would definitely emphasize therapist more than just a friend, because you never know with a friend. It might be a conversation that you just need to digest with yourself, or with a professional that has an unbiased attachment to you. But essentially, you know, are you willing to sit down and be like, okay, let's feel this out. And that is what has helped me. Being able to sit down and literally tell myself, let me just feel my emotions. Let me get over the initial hump of what I'm feeling, because I don't want to go to a substance to force myself to not think about it anymore, or to make me feel as if I'm happier, or just, you know, numbing the pain. But want to feel the pain. I'm alive, ain't I? Like, I want to understand why I'm feeling like this, so when the next time I feel like this, I can understand, hey, you might feel like this, but you might not understand the whole context of the other person or the situation. So let's take what you experience and, let's give ourselves a hug about it. Let's listen to some music that helps us calm us down and feel supported in the ways that we are not right now in this situation. And in that case, after we de-escalate ourselves and understand what we want to do, now we can look to the other stuff and just be like, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm not doing this because I'm not sad right now. I might still be sad, but I'm not doing this as a fuel to help me get rid of my emotions or anything else I'm experiencing. I'm doing this because I have, in my mind, gone through my emotions, understood, I'm de-escalating now. It's not, I must have this to feel a new emotion. It's the fact of, I'm having this because this helps me unlock another level of release and relaxation, which I've already released a lot of this baggage, and this is just to help me enjoy the rest of my day. Whatever you can fill in the blank. But understanding your family history and lineage is definitely key because it shows patterns that might show up in your life subliminally. So then the next question with your observations, you could ask yourself to help develop your mental health or develop the gauge of where your mental health is how do you seek help or look for the final confirmation before you act? So pose that question to yourself, like, what do you seek? Who do you seek for help? What do you seek for help? Going to the analogy that I just did previously, like, if you sought a substance or an object for help to get out of heightened emotions that you're feeling in the moment that you're heightened, then, that might be an indicator for you, like, hey, I'm going to something else before I digest for myself. That might not be what I want to do in order to grow and develop further, because in order for you to develop, you have to understand. And if you're refusing to understand, then it's obscure and you're thinking, okay, I'm fine, but really you're not fine. You just suppressed your emotions so that you could do the things you thought you needed to do for that day. And even outside of that, how do you look for confirmation before you act? Like, is the community that you're currently in, do you look at your other, friends and people and be like, okay, they doing this. All right, it's okay for me to, act like this and do that. So if that's how you're responding, do you look to yourself? Like, do you look for an instinctual feeling that allows you to know, okay, this is what I'm doing. And if it is what I'm going to do, does that sit right with my spirit and where I'm trying to take myself in the future? And without it being said explicitly, I'm pretty sure y'all know what I'm talking about. You feel me? Like, I personally believe that everybody understands when their body is telling them that they should do something over what somebody else is telling them to do. Like, even if that person is like your grandma or a very close childhood friend that you've had for years, who should know you like at the back of their hand, but at the end of the day, do they know what you're going through internally all the time? With that being said, if you're looking to that other individual for confirmation or, that clarity on what you should do next, they might be coming with the best intentions possible. Best. Most genuine, but at the same time, their life ain't your life. So I don't say that to say don't listen to them at all. Definitely take in all the wisdom and advice that you've been given in your life. But who do you look for that final confirmation? Regardless of what people say to you, where do you go to digest what you actually are supposed to be doing? And once you're able to answer that question, it opens the doors of why you make the decisions that you do. Because if you're looking to someone else based on their own experiences and their own experiences only, and you just accept what they say because of the fear that you feel in your own life, that action or that suggestion might not be conducive with what you are actually supposed to do. So who do you go to? The next question I have asked myself, and one thing I would suggest that you all ask yourself as well when you're evaluating the observations to develop the gauge of your mental health and where you are, is, do you have the willingness to improve what doesn't sit right in your mind or gut? This one for me is very key because, again, like I've stated previously, the development of your mental health, the understanding of your mental health, the application of how you respond to situations because of your understanding of your mental health, it all stems from your willingness. Because the development and the gauge and the observations, everything that you're taking in is only supposed to generate a meter to showcase, okay, this is what you feel, and this is the scale of what you are willing to do because of how you feel right now. It's just supposed to provide a visual understanding of where you are, and then on top of that, the different aspects or the different visuals of what your physical actions can do. This is how you would respond naturally. This is what is going to challenge you and make you act a little differently. But this is also what can grow you into the person that you have stated you want to be. This might prove a little stagnancy. That's all that this is, the philosophy of chilling being applied within your life or in your mental is supposed to do. That's it. It's a gauge. It's a meter. But at the end of the day, you have to choose. We're humans. We believe in higher spirits. But guess what? The higher spirits ain't literally placing your hand on top of it and making your feet walk and say, oh, this is exactly what you have to do. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No, you still have choice. That's what makes us human. You still have choice. So if you still have choice at the end of the day, what are you choosing to do? And let's be honest, you already know before you've done it already. When you're in the act of physically doing something, you've made the choice probably a minute to 30 seconds before then, what you were going to do already. You had that understanding in your mind of, oh, I could, do this, but I don't know if I'm gonna do that, so I'm gonna just continue doing this, and this. Okay, well, I mean, you knew it, so at this point, now you have to live through the effects of making those choices. So, if you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable and walk into a choice that can help grow you in ways that you haven't perceived before for yourself, then, what journey are you going to take yourself down on? And I'm going to be honest with you, I've made decisions to where I've acted the same way as before. And I've seen the results of it, and sometimes I just gotta chalk it up to life and a game. Cause I'll be honest, sometimes it's called instincts for a reason. They happen and it's like, oh shoot, I blacked out. Dang, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, let me make sure I evaluate myself so I can understand where that blackout point is, so I don't get so close to it again. And that takes a willingness to be able to have that conversation, not just with yourself, but eventually when we're discussing mental health, it affects everybody else. So if you're not willing to talk about it with yourself, and you're just dealing with the effects of how it impacts everybody else and the people around you, then there is definitely going to be some ups and downs in that road. But the whole thing that I wanted to convey through this episode of mental health is the fact that your mental health controls everything about you. It controls that anxiety feeling that you may feel, depression somebody may feel, procrastination people feel, because I got it too, boy, I'm telling you. But it literally affects all of it. So when you are able to sit down and understand where your mental health is, how you can apply it to help you improve your life and how you deal with your emotions on a daily basis, and even develop it to a point where you're able to articulate it to others and feel comfortable doing so, that those acts within itself can really help you tremendously in just improving not just your life and how you feel throughout your days, but also just the discussions and different topics surrounding mental health in general. So those are just a few of the tidbits and tips and questions that have been impactful in my mental health journey, and things that I have utilized to kind of improve, at least in my eyes, where I have been before. So with that being said, we're coming into the last couple episodes of the last couple minutes of the episode. So with that being said, typically when I have guests, I ask them if there are any questions that they've always wanted to ask me, or anything that they've just wanted my perspective on, or anything else, or any just questions that they just have in general. And even though there is nobody joining me for this particular episode, like I said in the beginning, there was an audience member or somebody that watches the Philosophy of Chillin that requested a question to be asked towards me. And I don't know what we'll call this. This is going to develop as it grows, but here we go. How has your mental health evolved from when I was younger to now? Dang, this is a great question. How has my mental health evolved from when I was younger to now? Okay, so my apologies. I had a guest come through the door in the middle of recording, so I had to press pause. But now we're about to restart. With that being said, we were in the middle of asking the last question, which was, how has your mental health, my mental health, evolved from when I was younger to now? So I tried to depict the understanding, like my understanding of what my commitment level is to my mental health has definitely matured along the years. Like the words that I said as a child, I was committed to it in a sense, or at a level at which I didn't understand the severity of that commitment. But now as I've gotten older, I understand how severe those thoughts can be, which has changed, which is one of the main influences on why I choose to walk the path of de-escalation in my, reactions and things of that sort. Now I mess up, but I'm transparent about it. I'm willing to talk about it. I'm willing to accept accountability. But most importantly, I'm more willing to move forward and grow with the understanding that I have from mistakes and from successes. So how has my mental health evolved? How I apply my mental health has evolved. Or the ways or the situations in which I utilize or I process through my mental health. The ways in which I process has evolved tremendously, because now I don't get caught up on the surface level details that make me feel the emotions that I'm feeling. Now I can say, when I was younger, my surface level was it. Like, if you hurt them surface level emotions, we out of there type shit. You feel me? But now, as I've gotten older, I've been able to dissect. Okay, these are the surface level emotions that I am feeling. But when I take some time for myself to digest why I feel the emotions that I'm feeling, it leads me to now understand that there are some levels of context that I don't have about the other person and why their actions made me feel the way I do. And even on top of that, it also has grown into me not willing to do certain actions that don't coincide with where I see myself authentically. Like, when I was younger, my mental health was so bad, and I put on a mask. I put on clothes people prefer that I wear. I built relationships off of the concepts and perceptions of what people thought I should have. And I hurt a lot of people because of that. And one key decision that I've made in my life was when I decided, once I had the social authority, turning 18 or something like that, to make decisions for myself, then at that point I will no longer put this mask on, and I will walk my authentic self, regardless of what somebody may think, feel, or believe. And that has helped me progress tremendously, because a lot of the relationships I built when I was in that negative mental health state, that mask hurt a lot of people. Like, it was unintentional for sure, because I still had genuine intentions to just have a good time and to just create memories and, be with friends and everything else. But subliminally, the things that I would be doing, it wasn't really helpful for me and who I wanted to be. It was just to have blind fun and be able to get out of the house and to say I did it because I have XYZ who are saying ABC, and I'm just like, okay, I'll follow suit and just still be me, but the exterior didn't match the interior at that point in time. So that's definitely another way I've seen my mental health evolve from when I was younger to now. And honestly, my levels of interactions have definitely evolved. They've always stayed in kind of the same pattern and trajectory. Like, I've always, even when I was like 6, 7, the way that I speak now, the way that I talk now is pretty much the same. It's just I'm more unapologetic and more forward with what my thoughts and ideologies are. Whereas as a child, it's just like, stay in a child's place, but like, I had something to say too. But at the same time, I say all this to say, I've always had friends that are older than me. I've always gravitated to people with higher maturity levels from, what society perceives. And because of that, like, I've always had I've always had rough patches making relationships with people my own age. So in regards to like the observations I've made, I've definitely seen how my mental health has aligned itself with certain individuals along my life's journey. Like there are certain relationships that I have with people that honestly, if you look at the details, you know, it kind of it don't make sense. But when you understand how the relationship started and how it was cultivated, and the levels of conversations that I'm able to have with certain people that I've, you know, developed relationships with over the years, it's definitely been very revealing for me. Man, like it's yeah, man. Like my mental health has definitely stood the test of time for sure. Like with the observations that I made along the way, like from when I was younger, I still gravitated to a lot of older individuals, a lot of more mature individuals. But even as I've gotten older, the connectivity of the maturity has grown, and there have been certain like patterns that have stayed consistent as well with people that don't align with where my mental health is, if that makes sense. So I guess that's everything I can convey to kind of best explain or answer that question. How has my mental health evolved from when I was younger to now? It's my energy is definitely more controlled. I have a stronger control over my feelings, and I have a better understanding of how to articulate those feelings to other people. Now I'm still learning how to do so and how to walk in it. But being able to digest it internally has definitely improved, for sure. Now I'm just in the process of trying to walk out that understanding to other people as well, but not really holding an expectation or attachment to how people react, just knowing that this is actively what I'm just trying to do better on and work, and get more comfortable working with it in a sense as well. So with all that being said, honestly, like I always say, I'm really just chilling, giving my authentic perspective and experiences on these topics, and trying to just give tidbits and convey the messages that I feel like need to be said. As we continue, there will be more things that we discuss, more nuances brought out. But as long as y'all stay tuned, we gonna keep chilling over here, you feel me? So, peace out.